This is going to be 14 tips to help you complete rim to rim to rim. And trust me, as a guy that just completed rim to rim to rim, along with many other ultras up to 100 miles, this video is going to save you a lot of time, a lot of headache, and a lot of fatigue. So let's get into it. Number one is you got to figure out what time of the year you want to go and do rim to rim to rim. And really you have two options. You have spring or the fall. Now, my personal opinion is that fall is probably going to be the best time to do it, and here's why. Especially if you're coming from a colder place during the winter, you don't have a lot of time to gear up to get a lot of training miles in, as well as get heat acclimatized before running rim to rim to rim. Now, I had heard from a lot of people that had started it in the spring that unfortunately had a tough time dealing with the heat. While I did do my run in the spring, I would much rather prefer to do it in the fall because of the fact that I'm going to be heat acclimated through the summer here in the Rocky Mountains, as well as I'll just be able to get a lot more mileage on my legs because it's nicer weather to run in. However, if you are going to do it in the spring, what really helped me was diving into the sauna at least 4 times a week. But that definitely helped prepare me as good as possible for the heat that I was going to encounter during R3. What you're always going to hear about rim to rim to rim is South Kaibab or Bright Angel. These are just 2 different trailheads that you can just start the trail at, and then they both originate from the South Rim, but the one I chose was South Kaibab, and here's why. Number one, South Kaibab is deeper, and yes, there's no water sources on it, but it is a shorter mileage than going down Bright Angel. The reason I chose South Kaibab though was not just because it was shorter, but also because I didn't need any water sources on the way down. And I'll discuss how much water I started off with here in a second, but it was very, very cool. I only brought about a half liter. And so I didn't feel like I needed to be on a trail that had a bunch of water sources. Now, I also took the South Kaibab on the way back, and again, that was simply just because it was essentially shorter. Like I said, I started at the South Kaibab trailhead, and I did not elect to bring that much water when I first started because number one, I'm gonna be going downhill and it's gonna be in the dark. So I only started off with a liter of water, and that lasted me all the way down to the Colorado River. What I also did with that ascent was I stripped all my layers as soon as possible because it was super hot already, 10 to 4, and it was already hot, and I was down to no hat and no shirt. And the reason I stripped my layers was because I wanted to keep my sweat rate as low as possible, and I wanted to keep myself as cool as possible until the sun came out. The next tip is I would highly recommend using the rocks and the stones on the sides of the trails to step on and run down instead of trying to go over the big berms and the wood things that they put in the trail, which are a giant pain in the butt to do and put a lot of fatigue on your legs. Obviously, don't go on the side that you could fall off the cliff, but the side that would be towards the wall is a lot better. But it was a lot quicker than having to step down off of the, I don't know what you call them, the wooden things that were in the middle of the trail. I don't know what else to call them. Now, the next tip that I would recommend is as you're going through what is called the box, which is the valley, the lowest point of the entire trail run, I would highly recommend getting water at the creek early if you need some. And the reason that is because as you start working your way towards the North Rim, you're gonna get further and further away from Bright Angel Creek, and it's gonna be a giant pain in the butt to try and get any type of water from the creek rather than doing it in those first few miles. Next is every time you are at a water source, make sure that you are cooling yourself down. And there's 2 places in particular that I want you to cool yourself down with water, and that's going to be the palms of your hands, and that's going to be your face. There's a bunch of research where performance was increased and fatigue was reduced when people would do things such as palmar cooling as well as face cooling underneath their eyes, and this makes a huge difference. Trust me. If you can dip your hand in water and then throw it on your face, this is going to provide such a really unique and significant cooling effect for you that every time I would get to a water source, that's what I would be doing. Next is to think about consuming liquid calories. Now, I loved using these rec packs, and this is not a sponsored video, but I just absolutely love these things because of the fact that it's 700 calories in liquid form. And as anybody that's ever ran a ultra marathon knows, the longer the duration of the event, more likely your stomach is not going to want solid food. And this is where liquid calories come in great. So I used this when I was coming back down the North Rim, and it was perfect because I had 700 calories that were easy to get into my system that I would never have tried to eat in solid food because it was hot, I didn't want to, and my stomach was kind of feeling a little weird. Speaking of that, your last water source on the way up to North Rim is going to be a place called Manzanita. And for whatever reason, I only brought 1 liter of water out of there to go about 7 miles up in whatever 5,000 feet of vert up. And I definitely ran out of water very early. Now that was also due to having to be stopped in the sun for about 25 minutes for a trail crew to roll rocks down, but I would have ran out of water anyway. And so I highly recommend taking way more than 1 liter out of Manzanita. I probably would have got by just fine with 1.5 liters, but that's just me. That's definitely your last water source. There really is no other water sources until you get to the North Rim.
At least if I die, I made it rim to rim. Oh, this water tastes so good.
Next is to frickin' use trekking poles. I don't understand why everybody is so resistant to using trekking poles. Like, this is going to be my thing that I preach until I die for trail runners or hikers. Trekking poles helped me so much when I was on this run, not only with the ascent, and it was pretty much 4-wheel drive for the ascent, but it was also for the descent, because one of the things you don't want to do, especially coming down South Rim when you first start, is to blow your legs out. These really helped and acted as crutches, especially when I had to get over those wooden beams that were in the middle of the trail. This helped a lot, and it took a lot of weight off of my legs. And the next thing that's going to help you complete R3 is to subscribe and like this video, and as a reward, here's me stubbing my toe on the run. The next tip goes along with the trekking poles, and that is to get a trekking pole quiver and attach it to the back of your vest. Now, I had a Salomon 12-liter vest, and it has a feature where you can put your trekking poles in the back with some of the strings that they have, but the problem is, especially if you have your shirt off, it really rubs against your back, and it is not fun after a bunch of miles like that. So I just ordered a quiver, and that's going to be my go-to piece of gear for not only trail runs, but also like doing 14ers and stuff like that. It's just going to be a really easy add-on to my vest or backpack. And the next tip is something that I just thought of when I was filming this video, and that is to get a button-down short sleeve shirt. For running, I like to have a short sleeve shirt, and I like the buttons because I can unbutton it and get a ton of airflow through my body without having to take my shirt off, but it almost feels like your shirt is off, but you're still getting that sun protection. Absolutely loved it for this run. My next tip is huge, and this was a big reason why I think I had such a great time ascending back up the South Rim, even though I was at like 39, 38 miles. And that was to stop at Phantom Ranch to get a lemonade. Now, not only one lemonade, but you should get 2 lemonades. One lemonade costs $6, but the next refill costs an additional $1. And so I absolutely hammered 2 of these lemonades in very quick fashion when I was at Phantom Ranch, and I didn't stay at Phantom Ranch for a long time. I didn't want to get vortexed in to staying at Phantom Ranch because there was a bunch of people there. So I ended up just pounding these 2 lemonades and started on the South Rim, and I felt like I could take on the world. And that was one of the best decisions that I made on this trail run. I'm creating a documentary on my R3 adventure, and I'm gonna put that right here. We'll see you for the next video.